That is a very difficult loss.
Tonight, the school on Yabamatong First Nation has been burnt to the ground.
In recent years, other provinces have improved conditions by amending basic maintenance rates.
And the Manitoba Liberals are asking for an increase in helping those who watch foster kids in the province. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs revealed some information of a new report looking into a search of the Prairie Green Landfill just north of Winnipeg. It's where the remains of 3 Indigenous women are believed to be. The report has been sent to federal and provincial governments as well as the City of Winnipeg and is not yet available to the public. It outlines the first steps needed to do the search, including a 50,000 square foot search facility. The report says the search itself could take as little as 6 months. AMC Grand Chief Kathy Merrick says any funds from the province or the federal government are expected to be transferred straight to the AMC. Melissa Robinson, representing the family of Morgan Harris, says the search could take place this summer.
Morgan is going to come home. We are going to lay her to rest. That is a promise that's been made, and we will. Now I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I believe that, we will start the work this year, by this summer.
To Saskatchewan now, where it was day 9 of the inquest into the mass stabbings on James Smith Cree Nation and in the nearby village of Weldon. Pathologists took to the stand to explain the exact cause of death of 6 of the stabbing victims on the James Smith Cree Nation on September 4th, 2022. And a warning, some viewers may find the following story distressing. Reporter Rachel May has more.
It was a heavy day as Dr. Derek Musgrove, a forensic pathologist with Saskatchewan Coroner's Service, took the stand. He testified in the chronological order of each victim's passing, starting with Damien Sanderson. Miles Sanderson, the lone killer in the attacks, and Damien were brothers. Toxicology showed that Damien tested positive for substances including methamphetamine, cocaine, alcohol, marijuana, and 1 prescription medication. Other victims we heard about today were Gregory Burns, Christian Head, Lana Head, Bonnie Burns, and Lydia Gloria Burns. Tomorrow we're expected to hear about the remaining victims' cause of death. Rachel May, APTN National News, Melfort, Saskatchewan.
Thanks, Rachel. To the Big Stone Cree Nation in northern Alberta now, where a state of emergency has been called. Chief Andy Alec says the community needs extra funding. It's to help with the increase in mental health and addiction issues. He's asking for all levels of government for money to implement his nation's plans for dealing with these issues, which have become more common across the country.
Mental health and addictions is the common area of concern that is affecting our on-reserve nation members, and we are developing short, medium, and long-term plans that will take some time, but we also need external supports and funding.
Police believe arson was behind an early morning fire that destroyed the school in a First Nation in northern Ontario. The fire broke out around 7:30 this morning at the Yabamatong First Nation school, according to the Anishinaabe Police Service. 2 minors, one 17 and the other 14, have been taken into custody. About 300 students attend the kindergarten to grade 9 school. Local NDP MPP Saul Mamakwa has been advocating for years for better community fire services on northern First Nations like Yabamatong. He says with insufficient local fire suppression capacity, community members can only watch as fires consume key infrastructure.
I think fire safety, fire suppression, and fire training, and then not only that, they get to ensure that they have the proper infrastructure to be able to deal with a building like that. It's not there, and I think for a whole school to burn down to the ground, It's that is a very difficult loss.
A judge has found a Saskatchewan Mountie guilty of manslaughter in the shooting death of his lover. Veteran officer 55-year-old Bernie Herman pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder in the death of Braden Herman. Braden's body was found in 2021 in a park on the outskirts of Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, where it is argued the retired Mountie lured Braden to the isolated area to kill him. The two men are not related. In Manitoba, foster parents have gone over a decade without a raise in the funds they receive to support children in their care. The Manitoba Liberal Party is hoping for that to change. Sav Jonesa has more.
The allowances for foster parents in Manitoba needs to be reviewed, says Manitoba Liberal Party interim leader Cindy Lamoureux.
Here in Manitoba, we have been in a CFS crisis for well over a decade. Every political party, no matter who is in government, has said this.
She's calling on the current provincial government to consider raising the rate paid to foster parents to keep up with the rising cost of living, a rate that hasn't increased in many years.
In recent years, other provinces have improved conditions by amending basic maintenance rates. These maintenance rates go towards food, clothing, transportation, and healthcare, and many more things. Yet they have been frozen for over a decade.
According to the Manitoba Liberal Party, foster parents in Manitoba receive between $8,000 to $10,000 a year to care for a child. They point to a 2023 Statistics Canada report that says the average cost of raising a child is $17,000 a year, around twice as much. Manitoba Foster Parent Association President Jamie Fow says the freeze impacts the well-being of the children in care.
With our service fees not increasing in over 2 decades and basic maintenance rates not increasing in over a decade, Manitoba is having a difficult time finding appropriate placements for the children who have been apprehended by this province.
Manitoba currently has over 10,000 children in care, and roughly 90% are Indigenous. Despite that, Fow says she received no training on how to care for Indigenous children in a culturally sensitive way.
Manitoba is one of the only jurisdictions in the world that doesn't require a pre-service training program. Our neighbors to the east and west of us do require pre-service training. This would be the perfect time to provide ample education about the realities of the 60 scoop, the millennial scoop that is currently taking place. And it would be a great way for foster parents to understand the context. Unfortunately, in Manitoba, we do not have that.
Lamoureux says she will call for an emergency debate on the issue when session returns in March. Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
I have made the other.
And we've just received a comment back from the NDP's Minister of Families in Manitoba, Nahanni Fontaine. She says in part, quote, "We also know a critical part of this transition is ensuring caregivers have the support they need now so that they can continue to support children in times of need." Well, the video of a woman whose hands were tied behind her back at a Winnipeg hotel has caused outrage across the country. Our Truth in Politics panel is here to weigh in after the break. Welcome back. The traditional practices and cultural activities of Indigenous peoples in Quebec are being affected by Canada's logging industry. A new study reveals that harvesting trees has severely damaged the Boreal forest and wildlife in Quebec and Ontario. Maricela Amador has more.
Canada's boreal forest is vast and diverse. It contains the largest area of wetlands of any ecosystem in the world. In Quebec, the boreal forest covers almost 1/3 of the province and is home to about 30 Indigenous communities.
It was kind of shocking because, you look at the maps and it's like, oh, holy cow, they've cut the heck out of it. They have cut a lot of boreal forest.
Jay Malcolm is a professor emeritus from the University of Toronto who participated in the study. Researchers using data spanning over 40 years from Quebec and Ontario found that commercial logging has immensely degraded the boreal forest and severely impacted its diversity. Malcolm explained that forest diversity is affected by harvesting old trees.
You've now focused the forest toward these younger age classes, and you've lost the older age classes, which reduces the diversity of the forest, the wildlife that live there, the kinds of services that the boreal forest provides.
The professor said that this loss of diversity has contributed to the decline of the caribou in Quebec, where hunting caribou remains an important means of subsistence for Indigenous communities. Jean-Roch Ottawa, an Atikamekw forestry entrepreneur from Manawan, said that the boreal forest has undergone major changes over the decades.
Ça détruit aussi des habitats des Premières Nations, là, parce qu'il y en a beaucoup encore qui sont dans ces forêts-là, qui habitent dans ces forêts-là.
But Ottawa, who has spent 30 years working in forestry and employs about 70 people from Manawan, emphasized that commercial logging is an important revenue source for First Nations.
Ceux qui sont isolés, là, c'est des problèmes de vie socio-économique qu'on vit. Puis ça, je pense que c'est important de faire travailler ces gens-là.
However, Ottawa said there needs to be a balance between maintaining commercial logging activities and protecting the boreal forests. David Flood from the Matachawan First Nation in Northeast Ontario has been working in land management and forestry for many years. He believes First Nations need to be leading the conservation efforts.
The question is, are we part of the people? Or are we going to put these covenants in place with better respect and honor the integrity of the relationship and allow Indigenous people to actually be part of the world solution on climate action and climate change?
Professor Malcolm thinks it's not too late to save the boreal forest and reverse some of the impacts.
Instead of planning to come in and harvest the stand every 80 years or every 100 years, which you'd like to do to maximize timber revenue, what about if for some areas we imposed a rotation length of 200 years?
He added that the boreal forest is crucial to fighting climate change. Maricela Amador, APTN National News, Montreal.
As we've been reporting, the Marboro Hotel in Winnipeg is under a shadow after a video went viral last week showing a young woman's hands tied behind her back. Protesters crashed the lobby and basement of the hotel last weekend. Our Truth and Politics panel is here to weigh in on this situation. Carrie Benjo is the editor of Eagle Feather News and in Regina, and Negan Sinclair is a columnist with the Winnipeg Free Press. Negan, Carrie, thanks for being with us this week. Negan, starting with you, we can't say much about the video because the young woman in it has been charged, so it's before the courts. But what did you make of the video, and how common do you think this type of treatment is?
Well, I mean, certainly we send our thoughts to the woman who's on the video, who, whether she has a history with the law, it doesn't matter. The fact is that the video that was shown is a harrowing video. It's a video in which there is certainly a lot of questionable behavior by the staff of this particular hotel, and that the Winnipeg Police have an obligation to investigate what is going on within that site. The problem, of course, is that when the Winnipeg Police hesitate or don't take seriously the claims. My colleague Rebecca Chambers, who writes for the Winnipeg Free Press, wrote a really brilliant column this week to say when Indigenous peoples are not believed, then the community takes it upon themselves to do the work necessary for the investigation. And they're not going to do that in a way that maybe is more comfortable for those who are in certain legal circles. They're going to do that in a way that they're not going to take no for an answer, and they're also going to be very aggressive looking for those answers. And so that's what really the situation has bubbled over in the surface, in that we have, if the legal system, if the justice system will not do the work, then the community will do it. And it's not going to look like the ways that the legal or perhaps other people of the public are comfortable with. It's going to be something that people want answers immediately.
Carrie, you know, the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations in your area weighed in with an example from a hotel in North Battleford, discrimination in a restaurant there. Are political leaders getting involved now because regular people are out protesting?
I think anytime we see something that is to the extreme that we've seen take place in Winnipeg, our leaders will come forward. FSIN, I noticed that they watch what's happening on social media and they react and they respond. And I think that is telling of of them. They try to be in the know of what's happening at the community level. When it comes to situations like this, I think there needs to be a more proactive, more researched approach. Like putting out a news release, condemning, yeah, that's fine, but what else? What, as leaders, are you going to do to address this situation? These are businesses, and one of the biggest things that you can do to a business is to stop, providing them with financial gains. Like back in the civil rights era, there was the Green Book. Businesses that were Indigenous friendly. Perhaps maybe there's something like this that needs to happen. Maybe there needs to be more investigation, more thought put into where they're going to invest their money, because there's money going into these businesses that are mistreating our people.
Negan, there's been some criticism over the protests at the whole hotel last weekend. Do you think any of that criticism is warranted?
I think when it comes to an issue of human trafficking, I think everything's on the table. I think the fact is that you saw those who attended that protest. I wouldn't even call it a protest. It was really an investigation because the Winnipeg police were not investigating, or certainly were not being aggressive in what has been documented by our newspaper and others to be a space in which human trafficking is taking place. I mean, there's legitimate legal cases at that particular hotel in which women are being trafficked, that prostitution rings are being based within that institution. And so the community simply had enough. And what I would say to anyone who's concerned about, using even our newspaper, which I'm uncomfortable with them framing this as some sort of rampage or some kind of destruction of property. Here's the facts, is that when human trafficking is taking place and those institutions will not investigate them and not take them seriously, then all bets are on the table. And that means that the community will take it upon themselves to be able to investigate. And we think about the history of women in landfills. We think of Indigenous women and girls who are going missing and murdered all the time. There are places that these women are going, and if there will not be institutions who will then step up and do this investigating, then the community will do it. And I think that everything is possible in that scenario. And I'm not a person who says, oh, let's just simply toss off the justice system, toss away the police, but they have to step up. They have to be able to step alongside Indigenous peoples and leadership and be able to investigate when there is clear cause, clear evidence, and clear reason to investigate.
Well, there's also been, Carrie, a lot of misinformation online about this all, but do you think there are other establishments, not just here in Winnipeg, that need to be under the microscope?
Oh, definitely. This is not just a Winnipeg issue. This is an issue that anywhere there's a significant amount of Indigenous people, whether it's a small town, whether it's a larger urban setting, there are businesses, there are establishments that are known to mistreat people based simply on the color of their skin. And unfortunately, Indigenous people seem to get the most discrimination, even from, other people of color, as we've seen at the Marboro. There were people of color discriminating. I don't want to say discriminating, but, it was a situation where it's a New Canadian, Indigenous people. There was a lot of conflict there. I think there is something that is really telling with this situation, and I think it speaks to reconciliation. Reconciliation is obviously not working because these situations shouldn't be happening as often as they are.
Carrie, Negan, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks to you both for being here again this week.
Thanks.
You can catch up on any of our Truth and Politics panels that you may have missed by visiting our APTN News YouTube page. Nation to Nation is coming up tonight right after the news. We've got a preview and more after the break. Stick around. Welcome back. It is time now for our photo of the day. Christopher B. Clark is wishing everyone safe travels out there on the trails while they're out and about. This is from Norway House Cree Nation in central Manitoba. We want to see your pictures. You can send them to share@aptn.ca, and you could be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 0 with snow in Halifax, flurries and -1 in Fredericton. -20 with snow in Kuujjuaq, sun's out, and -7 in Nain. +3 in Montreal, cloudy and 0 for Val-d'Or. 2 above and cloudy in Sault Ste. Marie and North Bay. +3 in cloudy skies in Thunder Bay, 1 above in Sioux Lookout. -2 with snow in God's Lake, 3 below with snow in Norway House. -1 in Winnipeg, -2 for Dauphin and Brandon. +1 in Regina, -1 in Saskatoon. -1 in Meadow Lake, 5 below with snow in Buffalo Narrows. In northern Alberta, -11 with snow in Fort Chipewyan, sunny skies and 0 in Grand Prairie. Sunny and +4 for Edmonton, +3 and sunny skies in Lethbridge. +8 in Vancouver, 9 in Victoria and Kamloops. 4 above in Prince George, snow and 2 in Smithers. Still cold in Old Crow, -45 is the high, 8 below with snow in Whitehorse. -27 in Yellowknife, 29 below in Norman Wells. -27 in Sax Harbor, 36 below in Inuvik. -26 with snow in Chesterfield and Whale Cove. -32 in Resolute, 36 below in Clyde River. Over to our Ottawa studio now. That's where Nation to Nation host Annette Francis is standing by with a look at what's coming up on tonight's episode.
Tonight on Nation to Nation, it's been 8 years since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its 94 calls to action. Some are now asking, where's the action?
But I actually want to put a focus on unions. For all the talk of solidarity, why aren't unions prioritizing reconciliation and prioritizing reconciliation for their members?
But according to a Toronto University professor, a reconciliation barometer is going up. Canadians are becoming more aware.
We have seen some movement in terms of non-Indigenous respondents beginning to align a little bit more in their perceptions of reconciliation with Indigenous respondents.
And we'll hear from a lawyer who is representing 7 Ontario youth in a legal battle against the lack of an adequate climate change policy in Ontario. That's coming up after the news.
Big Willow fan there, I guess. Well, you can catch Nation to Nation right here in less than 2 minutes' time. We're all out of time for your APTN National News for this Thursday. You can find a whole lot more over on our website. That's aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward and Marcy McGuitch. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you back here tomorrow.